remember getting off the elevator and our friends greeting me, and they're like, "Don't be alarmed," but like her speech is like really affected, you know. And I sat there with my mom while she told the doctor that I was her son, and told me how much she loved our cookbook that had just gotten. She got the first copy of our cookbook, right? My mother was an amazing English teacher, amazing. So for me to sort of publish the book was like a really big deal for her. And I remember asking her, "Mom, are you gonna make my brisket or your brisket for Rosh Hashanah?" And she said very clearly, "Michael, I'm gonna make my brisket." So I knew she was with me, but I held her hand for 3 days while she died. And for recovery, for our community, that is the biggest victory. Because what would I have done normally? My default would have not shown up. I would have made excuses. I wouldn't have been there for her. And then I would have like made it about myself and used her death as an excuse to relapse. So the fact that I could show up was like a really, really big deal.
That's amazing. A couple of other things I wanted to touch on. One is I wanted to ask you about staying sober now. Like, do you have daily rituals that you do? Do you have certain practices that sort of help you stay on a good path?
I absolutely do. I had a really hard time when I first got out. My sponsor was like, "You need like a mantra." And I was like, "Dude, I don't know what that means." And he was like, "Well, you went to Hebrew school. Do you remember the Shema?" And I was like, "Okay, I can do that," you know? And so I literally, like, I know I'm not just saying this because of everybody here, but like, I literally just started saying the Shema. I started writing tefillin. Like, we grew up not observant at all. And so I definitely do those things. I think that, you know, things like exercise are tremendously important. Therapy, tremendously important. Practicing honesty, disciplined gratitude. It's, you know, I really have to try hard for those things, but without a daily ritual and without hard work, it doesn't really, you know, it just doesn't work. I don't know people that last that long in recovery that are complacent, so.
Now, what about community? Your restaurants, I feel like, are all about, you know, community, people gathering together.
Yes.
That's, you know, for us, Big Vision, obviously, that was something that, you know, really spoke to me, is that Isaac didn't have a community.
Yes.
That, how important is community to you?
The most important thing. I mean, I think that when I got out of rehab, I had to tell everybody that I worked with, who were all like my employees, what was going on. A, because I needed to like make amends to them, but also, if I slipped, I needed people comfortable enough to call me out or to get my business partner or something. Like if I started not showing up, I needed accountability for myself. So that is a really big thing. And then I think that especially the last, you know, 13 years, I'm very open about recovery. Again, like I never really understood the anonymity part of it versus like secrets versus whatever. And the reality is, I don't know, I don't have control of these things. I don't, you know, this isn't something that I chose. This is not something that my parents chose. This is not something that like is even part of, there were no other addicts in my life. This is just who I was. So I really felt it to be non-productive to be so quiet about it and whisper about these things that we have no control over. You know?
When you were lying before and keeping secrets, you don't want to do that anymore.
You know what? I sort of said this to you earlier. I started speaking like in synagogues a while ago about this stuff. And you know, everybody's pretty quiet. And if I mention things like crack or heroin or opioids, there's always a group of people that look at their feet after I say that. And you know that their family is struggling. And the reality is, everybody is connected to this. Everybody has somebody in their life that they care about, whether it's them or their family members, that have like very little control. And I'm like, we're not gonna solve anything if we're not honest about this stuff, and especially in the Jewish community, where I felt a little bit like an outlier, like I really needed to bring this home. So I'm very open about it. We have 600 employees. All of them basically know what I've gone through. Our company works with a therapist office, and we cover the first 3 visits. We have a concierge service and subsidize therapy for all of our employees. I would say 25% of our employees all have my cell phone number and know that they can call me. We've taken countless people to rehab. I mean, you know, we do what everybody in service does for other people, but it is part of our language and our ethos of our company.
Right, when you say it's what everybody does in service, a lot of people don't understand service. But when you're in recovery, it's a very important part. And I think your being here today and everybody sees you successful, seemingly normal, you know. Yeah, you look like
Stretch.
Exactly. You look like a regular guy.
Yeah.
And you start telling your story, like kind of like what when Mary was talking before, it was, you know, you look at her and you think, this girl doesn't look like she was ever, you know, doing drugs, or, you know, somebody like thought of you, you know, shooting up heroin, or like I told you the story about Isaac, where I remember in the hospital and the doctor said they thought Isaac was doing heroin, and I was like, no, not my son, that wasn't him. And I felt this stigma, you know, even me, I felt that stigma still. And then I realized, like, what's the difference? If it's pills, or it's, you know, alcohol, or it's heroin.
Alcohol, gambling, it literally, the obsession and the compulsion is there. The use and the substance is the symptom. And unless the individual is ready to change, you have like no control. And it's insidious, and it is devastating, and it is like, unfortunately, just a reality that we as a community have to try to solve for.
So we have to wrap up soon. My last question for you would be, what would you share with young adults who worry that sobriety means missing out on having fun in life?
I was, you know, thinking about like the dances, and I was like, wow, sober people do not dance. But they do really well. It just takes a little bit longer to get everybody fired up. But I came out as a chef and a restaurant owner. It took me 1 year to be able to sit down in restaurants and have dinner, because I was like, well, how am I not going to be able to drink? And you know, alcohol wasn't even my drug of choice, but I was like, there's no way I can do this. And I think that, you know, I live a life that is beyond my wildest dreams in every way possible. We're trying to say something sort of meaningful here, but the reality is, like, the things that I've been able to do in sobriety, like make amends to my brother, like be there for my mom, like advocate for Israel, right? This is a country that is just continues to be misunderstood. I mean, I have a constant redefinition of my life's mission that I get to actualize instead of just using and manipulating and hurting people, and that's a really big deal. So, you know, being able to look at myself in the mirror and not be disgusted and to actually be proud is a really, really, really big deal. And to be able to share this with you and to be able to meet you and tell you that I'm like proud of you.
Thank you. I guess thank you so much for being here. I'm so thrilled to have met you and to hear your story and have you share your story with everybody here. I think it was inspiring for me and for so many people, and really just amazing.